You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
What's going on, everybody? My name is John Brookhagen, host of the Johnny Brew Show, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 2. As we approach Election Day, coming up here in November, we have got an incredible show set up for you guys. First of all, I want to tell you last week's show was absolutely incredible. I want to thank Brittany Sheehan from Red State, Chris Dyer from the PAA podcast, Sam Peters, Congressional District Congressional candidate, Greg Weeman, CCSD candidate, and of course my buddy Andrew Gordon. If you haven't seen last week's episode yet, please check it out. It's a great episode, and this is our new format, our new studio. I hope you like it. All right. Today we have just probably a better episode. We have Congressional District 1 candidate, Mark Robertson, running as a Republican. He's going to be coming on to talk to us, first of all, about we all know about inflation, the cost of gas. Did you know that Nevada is getting hit the hardest, possibly the hardest, of all 50 states? And that means a lot because many of us moved to Nevada because of the low cost of living. So that's going to be something that we need to keep an eye on, and we need to pay particular attention during Election Day. Because if we don't change things, Nevada is evolving. It's not even evolving, it's changing. I moved here in 2005. All right, and we're going to get into the numbers soon. But for a cheap rent, it was $400 or $500. For a nice place, you're looking at, $1,000 a month. 16 years later, we're looking at a minimum of $1,500 for a basic, forgive the word, crappy little apartment. And, $3,500 for something really nice or somewhat decent. So the rents have tripled since I've been here, at least tripled since I've been here. And we're going to talk to Mark Robertson about what he can do. Of course, Congress is supposed to manage the purse strings, and as printing money and government spending continues to add to the inflation, what can he do as a member of Congress, all right? We're also going to be talking about Kevin McCarthy's Commitment to America. Newt Gingrich in 1994 brought a red wave, and he had a similar edict in which everybody running for Congress got on board in order to make a promise to the American people that we're going to solve the problems that affect us most here at home. All right? We're also going to be talking about this. We're going to follow up on the student loan forgiveness that Biden is trying to do. As I do more research, it is more and more evident that it's really a vote grab. When you see the people who are being helped by this, this is a get out the vote campaign. 100% absolutely. Because as the Brookings Institute says, they're not even solving the problem by taking this little bit. It's a $1 trillion piece of propaganda to buy votes. Also, we'll be talking with Dave Crete, who's running for University Regents, about, the way they work, the income-driven repayment, the loan forgiveness, and how they calculate what your payment will be. Do people really ever believe they have to pay back these student loans? I could tell you from personal experience, and we're going to talk about that with Dave Crete, as many on the right are racing to get these lawsuits done, because once they give the money away to the people for loan forgiveness, they're not going to be getting it back. So we need to get the lawsuits, not we, but the people who are fighting it needs to get the lawsuits in ASAP, because once that, you're not going to, unburn that log. I know there's something a lot wittier that I can't think of right now. And it's because, I'm stressed, guys. I'm sorry. I'm coming to you guys and I'm all out of sorts. And I'm finding out it's because of the way society has devolved. I mean, I am all for capitalism. But the thing that the left hates about capitalism is some of the things that I hate about capitalism. When you talk about public trading and stuff like that, the fairest, most just system is if people invest in your company, you have to have a primary goal of making money. And that needs to be your primary goal. And that's the promise you make to the people who invest on the stock market in your particular companies. And if you're found to not have that as your primary focus, you literally could be brought up on charges. Of course, that doesn't count when you're talking about BlackRock trying to push ESG and stuff like that, but that's a conversation for another day. My point is, how many people of you are renting right now? What's your landlord's phone number? What's your landlord's name? The property owner's name. You don't know because you have a management company. And you know what that does? That insulates the landlord from the tenant. So that way there's no connection. You can't talk to the landlord and say, hey, I'm having trouble with something. And the landlord says, oh, let me help you out. You call a management company and they're not interested in helping you out. They're not here to help you. They're just here to collect the money and deliver it to the landowner with as little expense as possible. That's the whole objective of the land lease company, right? They just need to keep costs down. So they're cold to you and you don't have that relationship with the landlord. The same thing goes with commercial real estate. And everything you do is a negotiation. And it's because they just want the moolah. They just worry about their bottom line. And they're not concerned about your efforts to improve the community, your struggles. The Democrats are constantly talking about people's stories and their histories. And if a criminal has a certain history, we should be more understanding about, what led them to commit a crime and stuff like that. But that's all been taken out. It's all been taken out. We don't say hello to our neighbors anymore. You want to buy a car, you got to take a day off of work to negotiate because it's all about saving $2,000 or $3,000. You get a mortgage, you got to argue over every tenth of a percentage point because you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. And joining us actually will be a friend of the Johnny Bruce Show, Mike Campion. He's the regional director for SCE Credit Union here in Nevada. And, and I worked out some stuff and that's how I kind of got to know him. And, he's a community member. And I'm trying to divest myself out of companies like Cox Communications or Bank of America. And it's very hard. It's almost impossible to find quality internet or cable without using Cox in order to, be able to have the conveniences of bill pay or, money transfers or Zelle and Venmo and all this beautiful things that technology has brought us. They're focused on these big companies, which is what is becoming the downfall of capitalism. Globalism is hurting capitalism because capitalism is based on who could provide the best product for the best price with the best service. But when we're manufacturing things in China, we are getting such a good price and the quality is just good enough that we don't even care about the customer service because why would you want to buy a toy for $12 that you could buy for $2 if it's made in China? And if we don't know how they're making it, we don't know who's making it, we don't know their working conditions, we don't know how much of a wage they're getting, we don't know if they're breaking child labor laws, we don't even know if China has child labor laws, which is why it costs $12 to make it in America, because every single three-letter agency is watching every P and Q of the companies here in America. So we have to conform to environmental standards. We need to conform to unions and all these OSHA and everything else, which God bless our quality unions that are protecting workers, getting a good wage and a safe working environment. But at the same time, we're handcuffing ourselves and then wondering why everything is made in China. And I don't have all the solutions. I'm just telling you, and I'm way off my script here. I'm just kind of telling you where my mind's been going and how I've been feeling about things. But what I'm going to do, 50 people were left on the side of the road in 100-degree Texas heat in some county, and 50 or plus illegal immigrants died in a tractor trailer in a county in Texas. And it barely made the news. 50 people died in Las Vegas on that October 1 shooting. It didn't get nearly enough media attention, but it was 50 people who died, and it was covered by the news. 50 people died in this tractor trailer. It's barely even covered by the news. And then 50 healthy, happy immigrants take a charter flight to Martha's Vineyard, and we're talking about human trafficking and human rights abuses when that sheriff who had the 50 people die in the truck, that same sheriff is the one who's trying to bring charges against Ron DeSantis. I didn't hear nothing from this sheriff when 50 migrants died in a microwave oven that looks like a tractor trailer on the side of the road. But then the whole thing is whack. I'm sorry. Let me get on script because I'm not doing a good job. What we're going to do first is we're going to talk about how it's all about the money. All right? We're going to bring Mark Robertson on, but first I want to show you what the local news is saying about inflation, and then I want to explain a couple of things to you. Play tape.
500 lying around, that's what you'll need to keep up with those prices this year. And that's a lot more than you probably budgeted for because of high prices at the grocery store, the pump, and even your home.
We found that in order to purchase the same groceries that you bought in 2020, you're going to be spending about $100 more each month on average. For utility bills, it's about $70 more each month. So this really adds up. And if you're on a tight budget to begin with, things can get really dicey.
Elizabeth Renter is a data analyst with NerdWallet. The company looked at how much spending could rise this year compared to last. She says something as simple as switching from name brand to generic at the grocery store could help keep your spending in check. She says you also need to prepare for high interest rates, meaning if you were going to buy a car, maybe you put that purchase off for another year.
If you can funnel more money into an emergency fund or your savings, do. Because things might not get better for a little while, and it'll feel good to have that extra cushion.
If you can't put more money into an emergency savings account and these rising prices are putting you over the edge, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Go to 211.org or dial 211 to get put in touch with community resources in your area. With This Watching Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
All right, and this is just a brief explanation because I'm hearing reports that Nevada itself is the worst state for inflation, where these numbers are not even scratching the surface here in Nevada. All right, another thing I want you to understand is it was June of 2021 when inflation first took off and it hit 5%. All right. And all the experts from the Biden administration were explaining how this is simply transitory, which, okay, you come out of something, pandemic, whatnot, or maybe you have a little bump in inflation, whatever, 5% for a couple of months, then it goes back to 1-2%. All right. Obviously, that didn't happen because June of 2022, a year later, we hit 9.1% inflation. And what you got to understand is this is an annual measurement. So in last June, after Biden had been in office for only 6 months, inflation was at 5%, meaning if your bills were $100, they're now $105. Also, June of 22, it's 9.1%. That doesn't mean it's 9.1% since Biden took office. It's 9.1% since last June, which saw record inflation itself. So we had record inflation on top of record inflation. And as you see the next few months roll by and you see 8, 7, 9% inflation, understand that's on top of 7, 8% inflation from the previous year. So that's actually meaning your bills of $100 are actually $115 less than 2 years later. Also, what you need to understand is that the way they calculate these inflation numbers, the reason why it feels like inflation is worse than 9%, but they keep telling you it's 8%, 9%, and you're saying, I went to Walmart, it used to be $100, and it's not $109 now, it's like $150. It's because they include things like medicine is very heavily weighted in that inflation number. So the doctors at this moment are not raising their prices, hospitals are not raising the prices on emergency visit stays. Therefore, it's really holding down that inflation number. And that's why you feel like inflation is worse than the numbers actually say. All right. Last thing I'm going to say before we bring Mark Robertson on is in June of 2020, gas was $2.17. In June of 2021, gas was $3.16. And in June of 2022, gas is $5.03. You need to remember this when you go to the ballot box. And speaking of the ballot box, I have a friend of the Johnny Brew shows. I think this is the 4th or 5th time he's been on. Congressional District 1 candidate, small business owner, veteran, and patriot, Mark Robertson. Mark, how are you?
Hey, John, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. It's really good to see you. How's everything going on the campaign trail?
Hey, it's going very well. The polls are very favorable. I have an army of volunteers. Things are going very well. Awesome.
And, I've been following the campaign and stuff like that. Inflation has got to be one of the key points. I know the RNC countrywide is releasing a lot of commercials talking about the things that are important, whether it be crime, inflation, and, I think education are the 3 things that we should be concentrating most on. What are you and your campaign doing to get the message about inflation out? And what can you do once you get into the House in order to try to tamp this down and try to get rid of this hard landing that it looks like we're headed for?
Yeah, for the last 21 months, I've been out talking to people full time, and they tell me over and over that their number one concern is the economy, specifically the cost of gas and groceries and wages not keeping up. And so the word is out. I mean, people are feeling it. There's not a lot we need to do to talk about that. The people are feeling it. And so when I get to Congress, the first thing we have to understand is what got us in this mess. And it's wasteful government spending, trillions of dollars. And so to get inflation under control, we've got to stop the wasteful government spending.
Well, I mean, what does that include? I mean, obviously, I really feel like we blew the barn doors open with COVID. We might have needed a little bit of help with, say, eminent domain, closing some businesses down. We had to do the right thing as a government. If I tell you I'm going to take your house to build a highway, I got to pay you for it. And I felt like that kind of fell under the same umbrella when they forced some businesses to shut down, that it was the government's responsibility to help us out. But I really think they went incredibly overboard with the printing of the cash. And but also, you look at Ukraine and what's going on over there. You look at the student loan forgiveness. We're throwing the word billion and trillion around like it's thousands and millions. I mean, billion used to be a 4-letter word in Washington just 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of that so-called COVID relief funds went to things that had nothing related to COVID. And we spent hundreds of billions of dollars giving money to people who lost no money during COVID. I'm talking about government employees who never lost a job, never lost a paycheck.
Right. Why would they get $1,400?
Yeah, we sent a paycheck to the Boston Marathon bomber. People in prison were getting checks. No, it was a complete debacle and a very big waste of our money.
And, one of the big, and now you're supposed to control the purse strings in Congress. I mean, first of all, for example, Ukraine. Hypothetically speaking, we're all for supporting Ukraine against Putin. Then shouldn't we have some sort of a receipt on where all these billions of dollars are going when you're talking about a country which has a history, which a lot of these liberal media outlets have described in the past, in 2015, 2016, of being the center of corruption? And now it seems like, if you even ask to see where the money's going, you're not patriotic or something, or you're a communist.
Yeah, I am proud of the Ukrainian people who are standing up to this Russian aggression. Who I'm not proud of are the Europeans. If you take what all other countries have donated with military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, the United States has contributed 4 times as much of all the other countries added
Combined.
together. Yeah. So Europe, this is a European problem. They are on their doorstep. They should be stepping up. Germany's been especially disappointed.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but like Tucker ran a special during the week about China's infiltration of Brazil. Now, my question is, number one, is Bulgaria and Estonia and Romania and Germany going to come over to Brazil if we have a problem here on our side of the world, number one? And number two, why are we so hyper-focused? And forgive me if I'm wrong, it's the Wilson or the Monroe Doctrine that states that, we will police the Western Hemisphere ourselves. And, it sounds like we're falling asleep on the job as South America continues to be infiltrated by China, Chinese companies, Chinese investments, not to mention the buying of farmland and such right here in America and Canada.
Yeah, after World War II, we were the only superpower. We're the only economy still left intact in the world. And we made a pledge at that time to defend global trade. And for the last 60 years, it's worked very well. Worked well for our country, worked well for the rest of the world. Problem is, we're now $30 trillion in debt. We can no longer take our hard-earned money and spend it defending the rest of the world. Time for them to stand up and stand on their own 2 feet.
But the problem is, once we start getting into the weeds, I don't think the word $1 trillion in debt means anything to the average American. I don't even think 9% inflation really clicks in the minds of Americans. Of course, Americans feel it in their pocketbook, but how can we start getting the message across in a simple way where Americans realize that this COVID spending, that this college loan forgiveness, that Ukraine, that the wasteful spending on, the Paris Climate Accord, this is the biggest contributors to the pain we're feeling when we go to the local gas station or grocery store.
Yeah, of course, John, you're a math tutor, and this is really a math problem. When I taught finance at UNLV, I would illustrate how much $1 billion is. I'd ask my students, if you spent $10,000 a day, every day from the day you were born, so we're talking about $70,000 a week, $300,000 a month. By the time you're 6 months old, you've already spent $1.8 million. I then ask him, how old would you be by the time you spend $1 billion? They don't whip out. I didn't want to whip out their calculator. I just said, how old would you be? And some guess you'd be 5, you'd be a teenager, you'd be in your 20s. The answer is you'd be 274 years old. $1 billion is a lot of money.
It really is. And, I do exercise it like that with the kids for them to realize what these numbers really, really mean to them. And in order to address this, like I said, Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader and hopefully the next Speaker of the House, released a Commitment to America, which is kind of reminiscent of Newt Gingrich in 1994. I think it was called A Contract with the American People or something like that. I'm going to play his statement. I'm going to see what you have to say about this and see if you've signed on to make that commitment. Are we ready?
Great.
Hold on. We might not have the tape ready. All right. We do have it ready, Mark. This is going to be Kevin McCarthy detailing the Commitment to America coming to you from a local grocery store. Play tape. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. We're having some technical difficulty. But did you see the tape that I'm referring to?
And I can talk about it. He outlines 4 pillars of the Republicans' plan when we take back the House. The 4 pillars include an economy that's strong, a nation that is safe, a future that's free, and a government that's accountable.
Beautiful. Go ahead. So can you tell me what for you personally each one of those pillars means for us here in Nevada?
I can. So an economy that's strong means inflation is under control. It means that we have stopped paying people not to work. Right now, there are way too many government incentives for people to just stay home. And employers are feeling that they don't have enough people to hire.
Which is why we have no employees and a low unemployment number, because nobody's looking for work.
Yeah. The workforce participation rate is in the 60s.
Lowest in like 40 years, I think.
Yeah, it's terrible. And so part of that, an economy that's strong, means cutting out the wasteful spending, getting back to energy independence, and strengthening our supply chain. The next pillar is a nation that's safe. So that's talking about national security. It's talking about securing our border, reducing crime, stopping this flow of fentanyl into our communities. The deaths in my district, in the 1st Congressional District, are up double digit. Among the Hispanic community, they have doubled deaths as a result of fentanyl poisoning.
Well, I mean, now it's the #1 killer of our youth. I mean, we shut down every high school in America because a couple of dozen of teenagers died from COVID. We have 100,000 kids dying every year by thinking they're popping a pill that might, make them a little lightheaded for a little while, and they're dying. One stop, The
few minutes that you and I are going to spend together, during those few minutes, 12 Americans will have died of fentanyl poisoning. It is a catastrophe, and it is government created by opening our borders. So a nation that's safe is closing those borders to guns, gangs, and drugs.
Well, geez, Mark, can you tell? Go ahead, number 3.
A future that's free. So getting back to the Bill of Rights and school choice, a parent's Bill of Rights, so parents have a say in their children's education. And school choice, giving parents the opportunity to choose which education's most appropriate for their child.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's great. Is there a 4th, or was that the 4th?
There is a government that's accountable. Right now, there are no checks and balances because the one party has a monopoly of power. They have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. We need to take back at least one of those houses of Congress so that we can hold the government accountable. We want both of them.
All right, good, Mark. Your lips to God's ears.
We need to hold government accountable, and that means the oversight of the executive branch. It's one of the constitutional roles of Congress.
All right, so Mark, can you tell everybody how they could get in touch with you? I know the Democrats, I don't know where they're getting this money from. They call it dark money, or I don't even know what that means. But I know that you could use the help, whether it's people knocking on doors or making a $5 contribution or making a $5,000 contribution. Can you tell people how they could get in touch with you and find out how they could learn more about you?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. It's www.robertson4congress, the word for, robertsonforcongress.com.
Awesome, Mark. Well, Godspeed with your campaign, and I hope to see you again real soon, all right?
Thanks, John. Thanks. It's great talking to you tonight.
No, thank you for joining us again, Mark. Good luck. All right, guys. So, there you go. I'm sorry about my technical difficulties. It's my fault. Like I said, I had a rough day. I was a little stressed. But moving on, we also are finding out more about this student loan forgiveness. And listening to Kamala Harris speak earlier this week about how this is not for people necessarily with diplomas. Everybody's getting money. Anybody who's making this, that, or the other thing is going to get some money. And listening to her talk, it absolutely sounds like they're trying to buy votes. But here's a clip from a news station in Illinois that outlines the vice president's comments. Play tape.
Graduated to apply for the debt relief. So please help me get the word out.
That is Vice President Kamala Harris today urging students to take advantage of a new program that wipes out up to $20,000 in college loan debt. She said the Biden administration will soon post the forms that eligible borrowers will need to fill out.
Our political editor Mike Flannery is here now with some important details on this. Mike.
Sally and Anthony, while the vice president spoke in South Carolina, people in the White House communications office were video conferencing with local reporters around the country touting how many borrowers in each individual state could benefit.
In Illinois, nearly 1.5 million people may be able to benefit from President Biden's plan. Over 600,000 individuals in the state may see their loan balances go to zero.
That is a lot of people, especially with an election coming up in November. Eligibility is limited to individuals making less than $125,000 a year, $250,000 a year for a couple. The White House says about 90% of the benefits will flow to those making less than $75,000 a year.
The president and I also know that you cannot help us build a better future. You are buried under a mountain of student debt after you leave here. And that is why we have announced that we will cancel $10,000 of federal student loan debt. Right. For all borrowers making less than $125,000 a year. And we will also cancel, and this is of particular relevance to HBCU students, $20,000 of debt for Pell Grant recipients.
The Vice President was speaking at the historically black college, South Carolina State University. Those eligible for the student loan forgiveness have until the end of 2023 to fill out the paperwork and apply.
All right, now, guys, you know, all the people on the right, all the fiscal conservatives are saying that this is just blowing out inflation worse. And then you have the left-leaning organizations like the Brookings Institute saying that this isn't going far enough. Tuition is up 300% in 30 years, and this is just going to make it worse, which is absolutely something I'm going to be discussing with our next guest. 98% of applicants are rejected for their public service loan forgiveness. So they tell you, if you work for the government for 10 years, including if you're a teacher, then they'll forgive your student loans for you. Especially teachers. 98% of them are declined. A promise that was made to the people when they went to school and decided to become a teacher. An average of 55% of loans remain after 10 years of paying it back because of interest and the way they set up the repayment. So you owe them for life. For black students or adults who used to be students, 96% of their loan remains after 10 years. So any payments they did make only went towards interest, and they're never going to get out from under the student loan. Now, the question is, should income or wealth be determined who gets these benefits, all right? And, you know, let's talk about all the other aspects of this with the candidate for University Regents, Coach Dave Crete. I'm sorry? Oh, and of course, this education segment is brought to you by Infinity the Math Institute.
Infinity the Math Institute. Don't get more math problems, get solutions.
All right, so without further ado, candidate for University Regent, Coach Dave Crete. Dave, are you with us? Dave, how you doing? You're looking like Charlie Sheen with that bowler shirt on.
Hey, there you go. I hear you now.
Good. How's everything going, Dave?
Good.
Yeah, how's the campaign?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. How's the campaign going?
Good. It's campaign's a little different than Mark's is. And it starts with everybody asks the first question is not why are you doing this, but what is it?
Right. So why don't you address that before we jump into the student loan stuff? What is a University Regent?
So I'm running for University Regent, and we are essentially the board of directors for what's called NSHE, Nevada System of Higher Education, which is 8 institutions. It's UNLV, UNR, CSN, Nevada State College, all the community colleges in the state, and then the Nevada or the Desert Research Institute. And it's the school board. Like Clark County has a school board. It's the school board for that.
For the universities in Nevada.
Exactly.
Got you. And do you control like the purse strings? And do we get like federal funds that you got to decide how to disperse and where that goes to, and what kind of policies are, say, constitutional or not? Like, for example, UNLV just banned smoking, vaping, and everything under the sun that's tobacco related on their campus. Do they have to like get that approved by you?
A lot of the things are handled by, number one, the university presidents. Then the next up from there is the chancellor, and the regent deal with the chancellor. They can deal with other things when needed, but
so kind of like the CCSD is kind of JARA's boss, and the exactly regents right. are the chancellor's boss.
Correct.
Got you. Well,
the big thing there is the budget.
Got you. So, getting into, like, for example, the student loan forgiveness, one of the biggest problems that people have is they're saying that if you blow money into something, whether it be healthcare or education, all that does is bring up the price and make it less attainable unless you run the rat race. You know, how is that going to affect Nevada's higher education? Because I understand that, you know, you always hear about the endowments at Duke and Princeton. Well, I know one thing for sure, that, you know, the Nevada State College and UNLV are not Duke and Princeton, and they don't have the endowments or the funds that these places have. What does that mean locally as these prices do continue to inflate?
Well, I was doing some reading before, and CNBC I go to for a lot of financial stuff. They do really well. And they did an analysis of back from like 1987-88 school year to the 2017-2018 school year. And they adjusted for inflation. They did all those things. And they said, to the 2017 dollar, what's the difference in a cost of a college education at a public university? After all the adjustments, it was up 200%. It wasn't, you know, like we've got insane inflation right now. We all get that. But it wasn't that it was keeping up with inflation. It was doubling and tripling the rates of inflation for all these years. And that's because the federal government keeps pouring more and more and more and more money in.
Well, I mean, one analogy I like to make so people could really truly understand is the same thing over the past 30 years has happened with healthcare. And we all know what happened for the prices of healthcare. And you don't understand until you compare it to vision and dental. The dentist is not that expensive to go to. You can get a pair of glasses for $250 from exam to frames to lenses, the whole kit and caboodle. It's not breaking the bank, but you can't go get your blood pressure checked at the doctor without spending $200. And if you're in the hospital, throw in $50 for an Advil.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, that hits home for us because, so I'm considered a disabled vet. I go to the VA for everything. I look at what my wife pays through civilian insurance and what she paid 10 years ago. It's awful.
Right. And I think that's just a direct result of the subsidies. And people don't really understand. For example, they just passed and I know we're getting way off topic. We're supposed to be talking about universities and student loans. But, you know, you look at, they just passed a thing for the diabetes medicine, where nobody will have to spend more than $25 or $35. But the government didn't say you can't charge more than $25. The government said to the pharmaceutical companies, you could charge whatever you want. We'll pay the difference. And that's the kind of things that lead to inflation, of course. You know.
Yeah, and they'll pay.
Right. Anything the government subsidizes goes up in price. And I think that the education system is becoming watered down and less valuable, yet multiplying threefold in price.
Yeah, you know, it's the whole education system itself that's post-secondary. I have a daughter, like, you know, she's in cosmetology school. She's about to graduate in a couple of weeks. They wouldn't let her apply without her doing her FAFSA education. We weren't asking for a loan.
Right.
But they wanted all the federal dollars they could get up front.
Right. Even if she doesn't want it, they're thinking, well, we could still get it on the side for having her, especially if she happens to be low income or something like that. Well, Dave, can you do me a favor? Tell everybody how they could find out more about your campaign, where your district is. I'm sure we could use some conservative voices in education, so I'm sure all of my listeners would be on board the Coach Crete train.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously we're in a race. It's me versus someone on the left, and all the votes I can get, because it really is a race nobody knows about. But the district is Lone Mountain Road to Flamingo, the 215 to Rainbow. It's the most condensed district in all the regions. There's 13 regions across the state. And you can go to Coach Crete, like yourself. You've been a basketball coach forever and ever. I was a football coach 26 years. And
I
so
think we
Coach
showed some
Crete,
pictures of you coaching while you were talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I did it forever. And I loved it. It was a great thing. I just got tired of getting beat up by 17-year-olds. But it's Coach Crete for Regent, the number 4, regent.com. You can give to the campaign. We need money like everybody else. You know, you can do a yard sign. Tell a neighbor. Tell a neighbor when they go, what the heck is this? Hey, it's $2 billion budget, biennial budget. And our state education needs some help.
Yeah, please, please. I mean, you know, Godspeed on your campaign. And I know I'm in your district because I see your beautiful signs out there. So I implore anybody who's watching.
You see all this?
Yeah. You see that beautiful, handsome mug? Oh, boy, you sure do. You got a face for radio.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Dave, we wish you the best of luck on your campaign. And we hope to see you really soon. And, you know, let's try to fix education here in Nevada.
Thanks, Johnny. I appreciate everything. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Dave. You're always welcome.
Have a good one, buddy.
Have a good one, Dave. All right, guys. So there you go. That's Dave Crete. He's running for University Region. And, guys, I mean, we've never realized how important this is. Last week, we had Greg Weeman. He's the lone conservative voice who's trying to join Katie Williams on the school board at CCSD. Dave Crete is trying to get involved with Nevada's higher education. A fiscally conservative, former coach. I forgot to tell you, he's got like 9 kids. He adopted like 5 kids, and he's got like 4 kids. And don't quote me on those numbers, but I mean, the guy's a real good guy. He's really involved in education, coaching. He's also a real estate agent, so I'm sure he wouldn't mind helping you out with that as well. There's a free plug. And speaking of free plugs, I wanted to bring on somebody who knows a little bit more about economics than I do. A friend of the Johnny Brew Show, I was talking about him at the beginning of the show. He's actually the regional director of the SCE Credit Union. He's got over 25 years of banking experience. He's the chairman of the board for Voices in Voting, which is an organization where he's obviously lending his expertise and his perspective to try to get people to vote for what's in their own best interest. He's the treasurer of the Southern Nevada chapter of the California Nevada Credit Union League. And again, he's one of my answers to getting out of the big banks. And, and talk a little bit macroeconomics and the big picture and how these things are affecting you personally and your pocketbook. So without further ado, former candidate for County Commission, Mike Campion.
Clark County Commission.
Clark County Commission. What's going on, Mike? How are you?
Man, nice seeing you.
Very good. It looks like you're in a nicer studio than me.
Yes. Are we going to talk about Peter Cetera being the reason Chicago was such a success?
Well, why don't you lead us with that and educate us?
I can tell you what, Peter Cetera, I got hooked on Along Comes a Woman earlier tonight. So I determined that Peter Cetera made Chicago. Prove me wrong.
And who's Peter Cetera?
Oh my gosh. Oh, different show. The singer for Chicago.
The what?
The singer for Chicago, the band Chicago.
Oh, I like Chicago. I was walking down the street one day. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, so you've been watching the show, right? I mean, we were talking to Mark about the inflation. We were talking to Dave about the forgiveness of student loans. And, I've been looking, I don't know if you know this, we only met a few months ago, but for 2 years, I've been looking for somebody who could help us out with economic perspective, especially from a macro micro point of view. What is your opinion of, first of all, you get that 9% inflation rate on top of last year's 5% interest rate, and and people not realizing, like saying it doesn't feel like 9% interest, it feels like 200% interest because it feels like I'm spending double at the grocery store than I used to. What is contributing to this, and what should we be looking for in candidates to curb inflation or make it easier on us?
So I can tell you the Nevada Globe recently reported that Nevada, I think I heard you saying earlier about it feels a lot more in Nevada than it does elsewhere. And actually it's about 15% according to Nevada Globe. And they did their research. So it is much higher. We were at the grocery store today and eggs, $5 for 18 count of eggs, and people are having to make tough decisions.
Right. And I could be mistaken, but I'm friends with one of my Facebook friends. I think it was Pat Casal, who wants to be a guest on the show. And I really shouldn't plug his show because it's literally at the same time. But Pat Casal is on K-Dawn on the FM and AM radio. And that's the only reason why he hasn't joined us yet. But he put up a thing where he showed this little like frozen dinner. And he says, I know this was $1.29 2 years ago. And now it's on sale for $2.99. Like that one little product has definitely increased by over double.
And it won't look like it looked like on the picture when you cook it. So that's the other thing on that. Going back to your question and saying what do we need as far as a candidate, the fact that Mark, who you had on a moment ago, could explain inflation and was talking about it. There was a video maybe about 3 months ago that a reporter walked up and asked some people in Congress, "Can you explain what inflation is?" And they couldn't. So I mean, the fact that we have someone running that can explain it.
And even if you don't fully understand it, you could simply say supply and demand, and at least people realize you have a clue how economics or capitalism works in general, because that's all it is. Too much money, too much product, too much demand, not enough demand. I mean, that's the only things that really weigh into the conversation.
Well, and now what you're starting to see, we're starting to see that shift back. Obviously, with housing, you're seeing a lot more houses on the market, and no one's coming in and offering the kind of money they were offering 3-4 months ago. And
also, we're not going to have a cycling, because who's going to sell their house? Because then if they buy another house, they're going to go from 3% interest to 7% interest. So even though they might find a good deal on the house as the housing bubble bursts, they won't take the chance of losing their interest rate that they locked in when the Fed had it at 0% interest, which personally I think that was a mistake from the word go.
Yeah, it's a tough decision because what you would have bought a home for 2 years ago at $350,000, that home is now worth $450,000. Let's say you do that, but the interest rate, it prices everyone out. You can't qualify. So if you're happy with the price of the home, you can't qualify for the loan anymore.
Well, but exactly. So even if the price drops back down, you're not looking at the same price of a $350,000 home in 2020 as you are right now. The good thing about buying low and financing high is you could always refinance, but of course, you're at the will of the market and the Fed, and you don't really ever want to have your life depend on the Fed.
Yeah, and it'll get there. I mean, that's just part of the cycle. In 25 years in banking, you've seen it. At one point, 12% on a second mortgage was doable. But then we learned, the adjustable rate mortgages in 2007, 2008, those were an absolute wreck. So it'll get back down. I just saw it for the first time. I think on Thursday, I saw our 30-year rate hit over 7%.
And that's if you got perfect credit.
That's yeah. You could buy down, you could do it. But I mean, the fact that we're even talking 7%, and some people saw it coming. My wife was one of them.
Well, but as far as the Fed is concerned, not necessarily mortgages. I mean, we're looking at, first they said it was transitory. Then they said it was not that bad. We're going to have a soft landing. And now all of a sudden, everybody's starting to warn about a really hard landing and some really tough times ahead. first of all, what do you think would slow that down? I've been calling, you know a lot more than me, but I've been calling for the Fed to get interest rates up to 9, even 10% for a year to burn some of this money off. For those of you who don't know, interest rates, when the Fed collects interest, they collect that money and literally burn it. That's how we get rid of money, to get less supply of dollars to make the dollars worth more, which is how we bring down inflation. I'm saying like 9 or 10%, but of course, again, I'm just a novice kind of spitballing right here. What do you think would be the right number? What's the aim for the Fed in order to tamper this and try to ensure a soft landing out of this recession that we're approaching?
I would need to think more on it, but I totally get it. That they are going to have to increase more, but everything's slowing down big time right now. What people need to realize, it sounds like horrible me saying that, but is that when the Fed is increasing those rates, what it's doing is it's increasing the cost for a bank or a credit union to be able to loan money. So that's why you're going to continue to see the mortgage rates go up, the auto rates going up. But that's what controls the supply and demand. So like you're saying, you got to push that, you got to inject that to be able to get a control. And we're starting to see that now. You go buy a car now, you can now get under sticker price. 3 months ago, they were charging you $4,000 or $5,000 over sticker. So yeah, there may be a higher interest rate, but you're going to get the car at a more of a realistic value. And like you said, you can refinance down the road. Although credit unions are offering great rates right now on all ones. I'm not trying to plug. There is opportunity there, but the dealers are negotiating a lot more. The table has turned, and they're now making those phone calls. They need to sell.
Right, and then all of these things that you were talking about, symptoms of these things, are stuff like lack of enthusiasm in small business or opening a small business because people can't get a loan. A lot of small business loans are tough to get because you don't have capital. You have an idea. And banks don't really, banks want to, finance a car because they could take the car back. You have a failing business, nobody's going to want to take your business. So when you have a lack of liquidity in the market and you have interest rates so high, you're not going to have any innovation. You're not going to have any small business. And in that ways, it's going to perpetuate the problem of Walmart, who could weather a recession.
Yeah, and that causes the issues with the labor. Which we already have an issue with labor. So I mean, it's only adding on to it, to an issue that we already have people that don't want to work, that don't want to be in the workforce,
and then that brings
causing problems, and that causes problems with the product. So the product and the service you're getting is a horrible product and service, but you're paying more money for it. So
and ridiculously, we could take this full circle and say, which makes less people want to be teachers and less people want to be cops and all of a sudden everything slows down in a big circle, and it's all because, I'm not going to quote you on this, but I'm going to say because of overblown government spending, when this new modern monetary theory. Why don't we close with that? Give me your opinions on modern monetary theory.
Tell me about it.
Oh, well, modern monetary, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come out of left field on you like that. But the modern monetary theory is this new thing that they're literally teaching at Oxford and Princeton, where the debt doesn't matter. Just keep borrowing, just keep printing money. It'll all be okay.
Yeah. It's its own pandemic.
It's a fallacy
because people don't understand. Yeah, they don't see the repercussions of it. And we don't learn from history when we've done that kind of stuff in the past. So, from a business standpoint, when I was running for a county commission, that's what I wanted to do was things need to be run like a business. And if it's not profitable, you can't keep writing a check and can't keep going in the negative. If you go in the negative on your account, you're going to get hit with the fee. Eventually, the account's going to close out. And unfortunately, we can't do that with the government. It probably should happen, though, as far as the spending.
Right. But I mean, sometimes you got a system that's too big to fail, and that's a problem within itself. All right, Mike. Well, I really, really appreciate you joining us. Anytime, I mean, you're my new economic guy, so whenever I'm going to be talking economics, I'm going to holler at you. And anytime I'm going to bring up something with some stupid acronym like modern monetary theory, I'll give you a heads up.
Well, yeah. Now you got me. Every time you ask me on the show, I'm going to be looking for what's the
Well, the next acronym we're going to want to discuss with you is ESG.
ESG. Is that the stuff they put in Chinese food?
It is. No, that's MSG. This is the Environmental Social Governance Score.
All right, I am on it.
Awesome, Mike. I really appreciate that, man. And anybody, like I said, Mike helped me out at the SCE, the Southern California Energy Credit Union, which has nothing to do with California per se.
Right. Yeah, we're with Power Company Credit Union, but anyone can join. And if you don't join our credit union, look into credit unions. It's a great thing, and they're there to serve you and do the things the banks don't want to do it for you anymore.
Like some personalized customer service.
Yeah,
we're lacking that at this day and age.
It's a dying breed. But thank you, Johnny, for having me on.
No, thanks for coming. I'll talk to you really soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Yeah, that was Mike Campion. He's over at the SCE Credit Union, and he's really involved. And, guys, I'm telling you, some of these people, I mean, Mark Robertson, all right? This guy served, I don't know if it was 30 years or 25, but he served in the military. He was a colonel, long time, retired, opened up a small business, was about to really just sail off into the sunset when, just like so many of us, woke up one day and said, I don't recognize my country, and he decided to run for office. I know he looks, like a congressman, but he really is just a regular guy who decided to step up and try to represent us. Same thing goes for Dave Crete. Dave Crete, just a coach. He's got a bazillion kids. He's got a family. He's got a little real estate gig he's got going. He's put in his time. He's put in his effort, his blood, sweat, and tears. And when he sees what's going on, he started getting involved in, with the Republicans around here in Clark County. And now he's running for office, trying to represent us and conservatives in arenas that we're underrepresented, such as the universities and higher education. And then finally, Mike Campion. All right, this dude's a banker. He's chill. Obviously, he could just do his banking, make a good living, but he chooses to put himself out there, to get on the boards of these things, to educate voters, to get people involved with credit unions as opposed to the, big worldwide banks where you could actually, get some attention and get some of the services that we used to get from the bank, like a free calendar. When was the last time you got a free calendar from the bank? Anyway, and then we're going to finish off the show with some levity because I'm so depressing and upset especially on days like this. I apologize if I brought anybody down. My friend Andrew, for those of you who don't know, he's over there with the, I wrote it down. I don't know where I wrote it down. It's not the Huntington Post. I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? I don't know where I wrote it down. But my friend Andrew, he is doing the conservative schmear. And it's just a little bit of a levity in this day where if we can't laugh, then what are we even doing here? He's got a little bit of repeat material from last week, but he extended the video, and it sounds like he's agreed to provide us with some material. And I know a couple of you guys thought it was cute, so I appreciate any feedback you give us. So without further ado, here is Andrew Gordon with the Conservative Schmear.
The Kaltara event celebrating Latino Heritage Month. Jill Biden has thrown her support behind Hispanic players, saying, I love the way those tacos tackle. An LA school district has posted a woke video about food neutrality, claiming junk food isn't bad. Apparently in their cafeteria, a Snickers identifies as a carrot. GoFundMe is holding a fundraiser to keep a Portland Antifa rioter out of jail. 38-year-old Phoebe Loomis says she just wants the whole thing to get over with so she can get back to what she does best, spraying people with bear mace. CNN has canceled Don Lemon Tonight, but will be giving the host a new morning show. The tentative title is Serial Liar. A Delaware judge has ruled the Democrats' vote-by-mail law unconstitutional and is prohibiting it in November. Angry Dems insist that everyone should have the right to cheat, even those voters who can't make it to the polls. Dr. Fauci has contradicted President Biden, who has claimed the COVID pandemic is over, saying we're not where we need to be. Apparently, it got so heated, the two came to blows. TKO Fauci, who looks like he's packed on a few more pandemic pounds. NBA star Kyrie Irving has declared the vaccine mandates one of the biggest violations in human history. Also in violation is Shaquille O'Neal's suit. At a recent fundraiser, the word is Gavin Newsom is undeniably, unequivocally going to run for president. Apparently, he views it as a great opportunity to get the heck out of California. A top executive for Beyond Meat has been arrested for allegedly biting a man's nose after an altercation in a parking garage. When reached for comment, Chief Operating Officer Doug Ramsey said it tastes like chicken, but it's snot. Former NIH Director Francis Collins is worried that health officials have lost the public's confidence and has suggested the creation of a new government agency to counter disinformation. Why spend more taxpayer dollars to lie when we already have NPR? The FDA is warning against a new social media trend where people are cooking raw chicken in NyQuil. To capitalize on the trend, KFC is changing their name to KFZZZ. Congressman Matt Gaetz is calling for the bombing of the Sinaloa cartel to combat America's fentanyl crisis. Supporting Gaetz in the effort are Jesse and Heisenberg.
Guys, I'm sorry. I love the new segment. I mean, it really brings me back. I mean, I'm telling you, I knew this kid when I was 8 years old. When I moved from New York City to Long Island, he was one of my first friends. Him, Jimmy Levy, and a whole bunch of others. I was going to start naming names, but then where do I stop, right? But rest in peace, Delaney and Romeo. How about that? All right, guys. And that's Andrew Gordon from the Western Journal. They're a pretty good conservative media organization, all right? Guys, themathinstitute.com. Don't get more math problems. Get solutions. themathinstitute.com. We are fully online. I just hired a new tutor. She is better than me? No. She's incredible, all right? And she does all the higher level stuff. We got stuff for elementary kids. We got multi-person classes. We got one-on-one. Our schedule's pretty full, but like I said, we just picked up some new people, especially shout out to Miss Estevez. She's incredible. So I'm really excited about that. Anybody who needs help in math, please holler at us. Just ask Heather Florian. And finally, guys, you should notice we're not on Facebook. They don't like me, all right? Guys, I'm on lists. They don't like me at all. The only way I grow is if you literally tell somebody about me and they literally type in my name. I'm not showing up on Google. I'm not showing up on Facebook. I'm not showing up on YouTube unless you search for me. Rumble, all right? I got to catch up on my Spotify. I got to download all my episodes. But I need you to subscribe to everything. YouTube kicks me off all the time. But subscribe there, because right now I'm on YouTube. I'm not on Facebook. Facebook's kicked me off for a month. So, but usually I go live on Facebook. Rumble. They're not very user-friendly, but they are solid. They always have our back. They always publish our stuff, as is no BS, no nothing. Guys, I'm trying my best to put out great content with great guests and give you something that you're not getting from TV, from the radio, or from anything else. Maybe you're getting some great podcasts, but they're not talking about Clark County, Reno, Southern Nevada, and right here where we live and work, all right? I'm bringing it all together. And all I can do is continue to do the best job I can. I'm not a promotions genius. I'm not a branding genius. I'm good at talking, and I'm good at meeting people and getting them to come on and talk about important things. That's all I got. I need your help to grow, and I need you guys to subscribe and follow me. Email the Johnny Bruce Show at gmail.com if you ever want to be put on our permanent lists. Anything we can do. Text us, 702-501-5304. All right? I don't need your advice that I need to get on Getter or that I should be on Truth. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, I would love it if you covered this story or that story. Or I really like the thing with your friend doing the comedy. Or a great guest would be somebody like, Mark Amadei, and I'm a friend of his. Let me get him for you. I need your help. I don't need your advice. I think you know what I mean. I'm rambling like I did at the beginning of the show. We had our first technical difficulty today getting up a video, and it's because my head's in the clouds, guys. So I'm working my butt off for you guys. I promise you that. And we'll keep coming, rain or shine. So please help me help you. Subscribe, tell a friend, and educate yourself about what's going on, because we have a big election, and I wish it was more complicated, but it's really pretty simple. Vote conservative, vote Republican, and watch the Johnny Bruce Show. So thank you very much for all our guests, everybody who supported us, John, Petrick, and we'll get you next time here on the Johnny Bruce Show.